Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the workshop today. You know, somewhere right now, a person who needs exactly what your company sells is looking for an answer, but they're not on Google, they're asking AI. What's the best company for this? And AI is going to give them an answer. It's going to say, use this person or this person or this person. It's probably not you. And if you don't exist, you will never know that it even happened. No clicks, no messaging. They quietly went somewhere else, For you, for a consultant, for a contractor, for a coach, maybe you're a new founder. That's the hardest moment when you start out and nobody knows that you exist. You're invisible by default. So the whole job of marketing today, in one sentence really, is to be the answer. And that's the whole idea. So for the next 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour, I'm going to actually go through what it means to be the answer. Why most content fails, I'm going to give you a simple map that fixes it. And then I'm going to show you how one person using AI can do the work of a whole marketing team. And everything I show you, I'll give you free. There's a link at the end. I'm not selling anything today. I will demonstrate how to use Radiate, which is a paid service, but I don't get anything from this workshop. My only hope is that it helps you to learn how to do content marketing in an effective way for your company. So why do you listen to me? Why should you listen to me? My name is Michael Ashley. Everyone calls me MASH. I built and sold my first startup called Fast Pencil back in 2012. I've been an advisor in 3 other exits, Excellion, which is now called Kiteworks, and Shape Security, and Ubico. I was both an advisor in the beginning and then a contractor, and then eventually worked in these companies. And so, having that kind of experience is such an incredible gift that I've been able to use to share both as a professor at San Jose State University and as an advisor to startups and founders and to small businesses that are trying to go to market. I'm also the founder of Radiate itself. Radiate is an online platform that you can use that uses AI to help you do content marketing. I'll share more about that when I do the demo. You can learn more about me if you want to at mashley.com. I also run this inspiringfounders.com community, and you can go to Radiate and check it out if you want. All right. So the first thing that we need to talk about is what marketing really is. In the beginning, early on in my career, I did a lot of work in digital marketing, and I was basically a production artist, and I built beautiful, beautiful things for companies. And sometimes people would hire me and tell me, to build beautiful websites and all kinds of things, but they didn't actually understand what marketing was. They just wanted pretty pictures. And what I've come to realize over these years is that marketing can be horribly ugly as long as it does one thing. And the whole thing that marketing needs to do is turn real people into customers. Really, that's all it is. So what it takes for you to turn a real person into a customer is what you need to focus on. And so we're going to go through today how you can be the answer to what your customer needs at the moment that they need it. But the problem is you can't be the answer if you don't know the question. And the question changes depending on what part of the journey the customer is on. So let's talk about this customer journey. It's a map, basically. It's the journey that a customer needs to go on to get from awareness, like not even understanding that you exist, not even knowing that a solution exists, all the way to being totally delighted and telling everybody else about it. All right. The stages are awareness, meaning does the customer even know that you exist? Acquisition, which means does the customer have what they need to be able to make a buying decision? And adoption is, how can the customer get the most out of what it is that you've sold to them? Finally, advocacy, where the customer says, I love this so much, I'm going to tell my friends and everyone about it, tell the world about it. But depending on the stage that the customer's on, they're going to have a different question. And that question is important because the content that you create, the marketing that you do, during this phase of the customer journey needs to answer this question. Okay, not any other questions that are part of the other journey. So for example, in the awareness stage, the customer is out in the world looking around for a solution, and they're asking the question, does a solution to my problem even exist? Is there even a solution to my problem? All right. So your content, the job that your content needs to do at this phase is it needs to be seen. It needs to name the problem that you solve. And if your content names the problem and puts you in front of the customer, then it answers the question for the customer. The customer's answer is, oh, yes, a solution does exist. All right. You exist to them. That's the value that you want to get out of this part of the journey. The second part of the customer journey is called acquisition. And now the customer knows that you exist. Their next question is, why should I choose you? They need help to decide what it is that you do that is better than anyone else. They might have questions about your pricing or your features or, whatever it is. The question is different now. And so the content that you create in this phase helps them to decide. It helps them to see who you are and how you're different. Are you better, cheaper, or faster than the competition? And do you solve their problem in a way that they are, that they want? All right. So the value that you capture at this phase is that they actually choose you. This is the acquisition phase. This is the phase where they make the decision. And it's okay if they don't choose you. The data is better if you understand why they didn't choose you than for you to try to sell somebody something who doesn't need what you want. Okay. Now, the third part of this is the most beautiful part of the customer journey is the adoption phase. Most people forget about this phase completely. All right. In the adoption phase, your whole job is to figure out how the customer can get the most out of your product or service. The question they're asking is, how do I get the most out of this? If they bought your product, they're wondering how to use it. If they buy your service, they're wondering how to get the most out of the service. Your job at this phase, the content's job of content marketing, is to help them actually succeed in using your product or your service. This could be YouTube videos on how to use your product or service. It could be demos. It could be little workshops that you give that to your customers that help them to get the most out of your product or your service. Okay. The value that you capture at this phase is actually that your customer stays, buys more, and is so delighted that they then move on to the last phase of the customer journey, which is advocacy. Okay. The question they're asking at this phase is, how do I tell other people? How do I tell my friends and my family? Like, I love this. And so the content you create for this phase of the customer journey is about helping them share easily. Okay. And so the value that you capture at this phase is that they bring the next customer. They're so delighted about your product or your service, and you've made it easy for them to share, to tell other people about it so that they bring other people to your product or your service themselves. Okay. Each stage is a different stage. Each stage has a different question, and each stage has a different answer. All right. So your job then is to be the answer that either AI is going to give to them, because they're going to be entering into ChatGPT, what their problem is. Is there a solution for my problem? And ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or whoever they're using, Google, Gemini, whatever, they're going to ask the question and they're going to come back with an answer. AI is mediating the marketplace right now. Not Google anymore. Google does still, people do use Google. They still search on Google, but Google doesn't even show search results yet anymore at the top. They give the answer right at the top. And so the question is for you, how do you get to be that answer? Well, the answer to the answer is that you have to be the answer they want to give. Okay, and I'll show you some ways we're going to do this when we get into the demo. I'll give you a demo of how we can do this in Radiate and everything. But if AI doesn't know that you exist, then you don't exist. It used to be like search engine optimization, and you would go on the, and try and rank high in the search engine list. But if you couldn't rank high, then you would just buy ads and then you'd stick your ads at the top of the list. That's the same problem that we're facing today. It's just that AI is the one who is managing the list. Okay. And so if you create content that answers the questions for your customers at the stage that they're in, then you will more likely become part of the answer that AI gives. And I'll go into detail when I go through the rest of the workshop and we start to do the demos. So how can you do this? You're just one person, maybe a few people in a small company, and it's really hard to do this kind of work. But that's the magic of AI. AI has made it so much easier for you to do this kind of work, to create the right kind of content at the right time. But there's one key. And the most important key is that AI needs to have context. It needs to understand you, your voice, your point of view, your brand, your everything about you, your strategy, in order for it to help you to create the right kind of content. Without context, you're just going to create junk faster and faster and faster. And you see this online in social media and stuff. You'll see, people using single prompt ChatGPT to generate a post and just pasting it in social media, and it doesn't work that great. Okay, so I'm going to show you today how we can do it in a way where it is way more authentic and aligned to you and your brand and your strategy. Now, why do you use AI? We use AI for two reasons. Okay, if you have unlimited money, you probably don't even need AI because you can spend as much money as you want. But if you actually want to reduce your customer acquisition cost and increase the customer lifetime value, these are your two knobs that you can change. Honestly, you can do whatever is possible to lower the cost of getting a customer. Okay. And you can do whatever you can to raise the value that you get from each customer. So your customer acquisition cost can be lowered by using AI, and your customer lifetime value can be raised by using AI. All right. And both of these sit on the customer journey. Okay. Raising the value of the customer is in adoption and advocacy. Lowering the cost of acquisition is in awareness and acquisition. And AI can help in both of those places. When you do that, you actually gain more margin on your customers. Okay. So there's something that you can do if you want to test this out. Just go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever, and then ask the question that your customer would ask. Okay, don't ask about yourself. Ask the question that your customer would ask. Just like when you were on, trying to do search engine optimization, you would say, well, what keywords are my customers typing in? Okay, well, you don't need to do that anymore. You can ask the literal question. Just type in, who's the best company for organic food preparation and delivery in my town? Or who's the best company for, digital marketing consulting near me? Ask the question and see who comes up. If your name doesn't come up, then that's where we want to put your energy. All right. If you're not the answer, then I'm going to show you how to become the answer. It's not easy, but you can do it by updating your content and doing your content specifically for each phase of the customer journey. Everything that I've talked about so far is in a repo on GitHub. You can have it. It's free. I'm going to include in this repo all of the skills that I use, all of the prompts that I use. There's all of these, the slides are in there. You can use it. You can take it. Everything I've showed you, the slides, the steps, the prompts, the tools, the links, it's all free. It's going to be in this repo. Take it and use it. Okay. If you want to do it with Radiate, which is what I'm going to show you in this upcoming workshop, then you can do all of this in Radiate, and Radiate will maintain everything and your context. The context is the most important piece. Radiate manages all of your context so that every piece of content that you generate is always on brand, in the right strategy for the customer journey, wherever the customer is at. Okay. And so, enjoy this, take this, and then stick around for the rest of the workshop. All right. But let me now jump into how I take care of some of these things, and then I'll go into depth about, how you can set this up really quickly and really easily. Now, the first thing I'm going to be totally honest with you, is that Radiate is a paid platform. It costs money. You can go to pricing and you can see it if you want to. If you go to the pricing, the individual plans $35 a month, and companies start at $100 a month. Believe me, it's worth it if you want to use it and try it. I really highly recommend you do. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Literally, if you go in and you sign up and you're like, this sucks, I don't want it, give me my money back. You click the button, they'll give you all your money back. I want you to be happy, but I honestly think that you'll love it. Okay, now that being said, when you sign up, you're going to get an account, and you get a personal account when you start out. If you're a company, you actually can have a company account, and the company account is going to give you a lot more features. And I'll go through some of these, but I'm going to show you some of them that are the most valuable today for creating content along the customer journey that is authentic to your brand, so that you don't sound like AI Slop. Okay. But in the company version, you get LinkedIn pages, X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can even hook up like your Luma event calendar, and you can hook up your MailChimp, email, so that you can do email blasts and everything like that right from Radiate. So the whole concept of Radiate, if you think about it, is that you have content. You already have content somewhere, probably. And if you take your content and you break it up into pieces, you can put those pieces all over the place, in all the different channels, in all the different ways. Okay. So there's two ways to think about the content that you have. One is that you're using content that already exists. And then the other is that you're creating new content. All right. So just as a really quick overview for Radiate, there's a few things that you need to know to use it. One is posting. You can come into Radiate and you can just like create a post and send it out and schedule it and put it out on wherever you want. These are the posts that I have that are going out on LinkedIn and X and Instagram and stuff. And you can always do drafts so that you can iterate on them with people and your other people in your company. There's a new feature in here that I'm going to show you guys real quick because it just is so cool. It's called the Create Images feature. And the Create Images feature basically can create really, really good images. As a matter of fact, let me go back to my personal account, and I'll go into the Create, and I'll show you. I created a template called My Double, and I used this double in order to make images where I'm in them, but I'm not doing. So I uploaded a few images. You can see here at the top of me kind of working or whatever. And then I can just make a prompt in here, and I can say, I'm delivering a keynote speech at a big convention, right? It could just be as simple as that, and then you can generate it. You can see a few of them here I generated on the bottom already, and it'll take you and it'll put you anywhere in the world doing whatever you want. I didn't actually tell it like what to say because I could have captioned it, and it could have put stuff on there for me. You can even see in my testing, like it did some things wrong, and I had to kind of change the prompt because I was like, no, don't put the message on the back of the computer screen, right? But so here's an example. Like it just totally took me, and it took the images that I gave it as an example, and then it put me in, as a keynote speaker in a convention. So I can use this now if I wanted to, and I could do different kind of, prompt or headlines and stuff like that over it if I wanted to. So these are some of the features. You can post content, you can schedule it, you can create images, you can turn this image into a post if I wanted to. So you can manage all of this stuff in your brand. If you go to the brand kit right here, on the left, there's a brand kit that you can open, and this brand kit has everything about your brand. You can do this by uploading a brochure of yours, and it'll look at the brochure and it'll pull it out and it'll say what your colors are, and then you can even upload your images, like your logos are in here and everything. And the reason why I do that is because you can generate post images like these. I'll show you this one right here. This is an image that was generated by Radiate, but it used Radiate colors and brand and everything instead. So this can be done really quickly in Radiate. You don't even have to use that create button. You can do that right inside of the post. For example, I think I have, here's a post that's scheduled to go out on LinkedIn tomorrow at 8 a.m. If I go into this post right here, I have all the same options. I can generate an image, I could choose from the library, or I could generate a carousel images for Instagram. So you get like 3 or 4 or 5 images. This post probably doesn't have enough for a carousel image, but I could go in here and say something like reputation doesn't spike, it compounds. Let's see here. Let's take that and then let's copy this whole piece like that. I'll generate an AI image and I'll paste this quote in. Like, I think I like that right there. Oh, wait a minute. That's the direction. Sorry. I can paste the quote in there and then I'll just leave the creative direction alone, but you could tell it more, creative direction if you want to. And then this is right in the post. It'll generate an image that's much more aligned to your brand because the brand is all stored inside the brand kit. It takes a few seconds to render, and every time you render, you use up credits. That's the way that Radiate works, is that you subscribe to one of the, packages, like $35 a month, you get 300,000 credits. The company plan, you get 1 million credits. And then as you do things like generating images and generating posts and things like that, you use up the credits. Usually it's about 30 days worth of credits that you get for the pricing that you get, depending on how much you use it. So here's what it said. Reputation doesn't spike, it compounds. Every post is a small deposit. And so that's how it generated this image. It looks like there were some issues, so I'm not going to use that image. So I'll just remove it. And then I'm going to move it back to drafts, and that part's done. But let me show you the piece, though, that I think is the most valuable about what we were trying to talk about, is how do you create the right content at the right time? And that's where I use the Claude AI connection right here. So if you go into Claude AI or Connect Claude, you get a URL, and you copy that URL, okay? And then you go to Claude.ai, and you go to the little toolbox over here called Customize, and you go to Connectors, and then inside Connectors, you click the little Add button, and you add a custom connector. And we're just going to call this custom connector Radiate, and we're going to paste in that URL that you got. Just do those two things right there. And then after you do that, it's going to connect Radiate, okay? And you'll see that Radiate is now connected here in Claude. And I just choose always allow because it makes it really easy for me to do work with this. And all of these things are little tools that Claude has available to it to do work in Radiate. Okay, there's a whole bunch of tools now. And I'm going to show you the ones that I like the most, and then how to use them when you're setting Radiate up so that your posts can get more authentic. All right, so let's start with figuring out whether it's connected. Okay, so what workspace am I connected to in Radiate? So I'm just going to ask it that question, and Claude's going to come back. Now you can do this in ChatGPT too. Is there anyone who doesn't use Claude, who just uses ChatGPT? Jenny, are you on Claude or ChatGPT? You're okay?
I use Claude. Actually haven't been on ChatGPT for a while.
Perfect. So Claude is fantastic for this. What it's going to do is it's going to go in and say, what you're connected to. So it says I'm connected on my personal workspace, but I want it to switch to my Radiate company. So I'm going to say switch to my Radiate org and see if it can switch. So every company that you have, every workspace you have in Radiate is actually a separate brand container. So you can use it completely separately. You can switch between them. So your personal brand can be totally different from your company brand. And then the content you create for your personal and your company will be totally different. So it looked like somebody had a question. Did I miss? Let's see, in chat. Thanks for putting this together, Mash Eniola. Okay, right on, man. See you. Okay, so now that I've switched to Radiate, you can actually, let me just see here, make sure this is still showing up here. Okay, good. Let me switch back to Zoom. Okay. All right. So now that I'm in Radiate, the first thing I do when I'm setting up my system, before I create any content, is I just want to make sure that that I actually have the right brand context and the strategy and everything loaded into Radiate. Because the more I load into Radiate, the more that it has sort of like my brain that it can use anywhere, whether it's in Claude or in Radiate or ChatGPT or any place that's connected to Radiate. So I want to save it in one place. So the first thing I'm going to say is what do you know about my brand and strategy? And this is a great question because it's going to be as honest as it can from what is stored in Radiate. And what you'll discover is you'll be like, oh my gosh, wow, I actually must have put the wrong thing in Radiate, or I saved something wrong, or I need to update it or fix it. And so what it'll do is it'll go into Radiate, it'll actually figure out what you know who you are. And so I can read this and I can say, is this true? Is this who I want to be? This is who it thinks I am. And when it creates any kind of content, it's going to use this as its basis for creating that content. Okay. So here you can see that I've stored everything about Radiate inside Radiate. I've got my content, my voice guardrails. This is like, how do I want it to generate content? You can see I have confident, peer-to-peer, use specific numbers, no hype, explicitly banned. Like I said, don't use superlatives like revolutionary or game-changing or seamless. Don't use any corporate jargon. Don't do really long paragraphs. It can actually go in and it can update Radiate for me. So I'm not going to actually continue in this way. So I'm going to say, let's move on and look at what posts I have scheduled. Okay. So you can actually ask that. You can just say, tell me about my day. Tell me what's going on. Tell me about, my week. This is actually a really useful thing that you would maybe want to build into a skill. You might say, let's create a new skill called, give me my weekly briefing. Or weekly briefing. And if you pull up the weekly briefing skill, then it can just go to Radiate. It can look and see, what posts do you have scheduled for the whole week. And it'll give you a really, really great update about what content is going out. You can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. There are posts that are going out. Nothing is scheduled between now and Monday. Okay, today's Thursday, so Thursday and Friday slots are empty. And then it even says 4 of them use M dashes. So I could go in and say, oh man, can you fix those? So I actually could say, can you fix the ones with M dashes? Actually, that's all you have to say. You don't even have to say very much. because of how Radiate integrates with Claude, it integrates in a way where Claude understands everything. So what it'll do is it'll go and fix all the M dashes, and then it'll reschedule the posts to make sure that they're all still going to go out at the same times and the same dates. Okay. So it's rewriting the 4 now. It's keeping the meaning and the structure and the scheduled times. They're all identical. So it hasn't changed anything. All it's doing is trying to update the content so that I don't use the M dash. But getting back to what Beth brought up earlier was one of the biggest concerns people have is like, how do I make sure that it doesn't look like AI slop? One of the things that I do is to try to make it sound more like me in order, for that to happen. And part of that is what I just showed you about the M dash. And that's just telling Claude here or Radiate, what to store in the brain. And the more you store in the brain, you could say, I speak in really short sentences, or I like really long sentences, or I like short content, or whatever. And you can tell it these kinds of things. All right. But one of the tricks that I've learned that I really enjoy is because you're in Claude can go out and browse the internet, and you can even go say like, thanks, let's get back to my brand context and strategy. I'm going to say, let's get back to my brand. So I'm going to say, can you look at my website, radiate.com, and make sure my brand is consistent. So it's going to actually go to my website, and it's going to look at my website, and it's going to see what is my website saying to the world. And then it's going to go to Radiate, and it's going to say, what is Radiate saying to the world? And it's going to say, are those consistent? Am I saying the same thing when I do a post? Is it the same thing I want to be saying, on my website? And so that's another really great way, Beth, where you might say, if you've done some development for Quora, if you've done a bunch of branding and other things, then you can just point Claude at those branding pieces and just say, can you take the brand that I'm building over here and store that, like update, Radiate, make sure that that's consistent. Use the same voice, use the same tone, use the same point of view, that kind of stuff. Okay, so it's awesome. It is game changing. I'm telling y'all. It's awesome because it's not only does it work on the website, it works on Claude if you have it on your phone. Like I open Claude on my phone, and the connector is automatically connected on my phone. So sometimes I'll lay in bed at night when I'm, kind of getting ready to go to sleep, and I go, oh shoot, I forgot I was supposed to post about this workshop tomorrow. And I'll open Claude and I'll say, connect to my Radiate workspace. And it'll say, okay, I'm connected. And I'll say, create a post for me about this workshop, and, schedule it to go out at, 6:30 in the morning. And it's all done. It'll do it all. There's another thing in Radiate. If you don't have Claude, if you don't have the paying version, or you don't want to connect the MCP, you can go to the Journey over here on the left. It's called the Journey Coach. And this is basically my AI working with the brand context and the brain and everything for you, for your benefit. You don't need Claude to do this. It's just sort of, Claude is something for advanced users if you really like to use, the agent itself to do the work for you. If you don't have it, you can start here. Okay. And these are green on mine, but they're probably yellow. Actually, you know what? I think I might have a version where I can go to that might be yellow. Let's go to, maybe it's Mash Test. Okay. Yeah. So this is probably what you're seeing. It's like yellow, warnings, and I'm not connected to anything. So what you want to do is just click this orange button that says work through it with Radiate. Yep. And when you click that button, then the Radiate Coach, which is an AI coach, goes through all of your old brand context and strategy and everything, and it helps you work through them. like a quiz. So it says, all right, I read your brand context. Here's some things that I think we can work on. Like there's no results or there's no numbers. There's no proof that, what you say is true. Maybe some testimonials. You could do that. You maybe add some credentials if you have them. And so the question it wants me to answer is, what's the most compelling proof you can point to right now? Okay. Well, one thing I didn't say, because I talked a lot about brand and brand, context and voice and everything, which is really great. You can do all this in Radiate, and you can work through it with Claude, whatever. But the next piece that's really important to get to after that is your strategy. And this is kind of back to the beginning of the thing. Like, what is your strategy? Are you trying to build awareness? Are you trying to acquire customers? Because if your strategy is awareness, but you're trying to sell people, you're inconsistent. If your strategy is awareness, then you need to have a strategy of like building awareness. How do I answer the question? Hey, I'm here. Are you losing customer? People are asking the question, how do I convert more customers at, on my e-commerce site? You got to show up and be like, the way to convert more customers on your e-commerce site is to understand whether they're leaving because they don't like it or because there's a glitch in your website. The only way to know that is to actually watch what's happening real time. So you're answering questions that people are asking. That's like so important. To that point, let me show you one more thing that's so cool. I don't know if I did this before, but there is a feature in the personal called Ask Questions. Okay, you can see one of them right here. See this question? This question is generated by Radiate in order for me to try to answer it. That's the whole reason. Okay, and so you can turn this on if you go into your feed settings here. You see this little gear. If you go to the gear, all right, and you go to suggested questions, see that suggested questions, and you click enabled. If you enable that suggested questions, then you're going to have to wait a little while because we need to read your brand and your strategy and stuff like that. But what will happen is in the Discover feed, a question will pop up and you'll be like, oh my God, I totally can answer that question. But the key with Radiate is you want to answer it once so that you can share it everywhere. And so you click this little answer on social button. Okay. So I didn't read it yet. So let me see. Everyone tells me I should be building a public presence as a founder, but I'm worried it turns into performative posting. How do I build a body of work that actually earns trust from buyers and investors instead of just chasing reach? So then I go, wow, that's right on brand for me. So I'm gonna click answer on social. Okay. And I'm going to just actually not even going to say anything. I'm just going to say generate a post that I could maybe put on LinkedIn. So if I go here, what Radiate's going to try to do is it's going to try and help me answer that question in the form of a post that can go out and become content on social media as being the answer. That was the whole gist of like, how do you be the answer? You answer the right questions. And so if you use that feature in Radiate, then it's like creating content very specific to the answers that, people are looking for. But I think that's what I realized is that a lot of people can get tools. You can get tools, but if you don't know really how to use them or what to do with them, then it's hard. So here's the output. So it said, most people going independent think visibility is a numbers game. It isn't, it's a memory game. And then it goes on to answer that question. And I'm like, gosh, I really liked that. So let's generate. Let me just do this last little demo for you. I'm going to generate a carousel instead of just one image. And the cool thing about a carousel is people are actually more engaged when they have 2 or 3, images or PDFs or whatever to look at. So Radiate will go through this and it'll say, well, can I break this into pieces? And then can I use those pieces to make like a multi-page PDF for LinkedIn? And then let Let me open that PDF real quick to see what it came up with. So here's what it came up with. It said visibility is not a numbers game, it's a memory game. And then you can see each of these pieces are, based on the radiate colors and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to say continue to schedule. I'm going to say save to schedule. And then what I will do is, it's right here. So I'm just going to click post now. And then I'll post that. And then what I'll do is just for you guys so that you can see how fast this works. Let's see here. It posted. So I'll click view post. Okay. And so it goes right to LinkedIn. All right. And then if I copy this, well, you guys could probably find it on LinkedIn, but I'll put it in chat for you. So if you click on that, then it should take you right to this post and you'll be able to see how, see the carousels right here. All right. Okay. So like and comment on my post for me. Okay. And then you'll get extra credit for the class. I'll tell you one more thing about consistency is you don't want to remove yourself from doing really authentic, one-offs. But what you want is you want something to be there all the time so that when you do your one-offs, they go in the right places. And so the last piece that you find on Radiate is the planning agent. And what you can do here is you can choose, like, say for August, right? If I go to August, do I have anything? Like, I don't have anything yet for August. Okay. So I could literally just say, well, generate a plan for August. Okay. And I don't know what it is yet. Like I can start it. It'll take a while, but I could say, build awareness. That's all. Yeah, so if you look at what it came up with here, it came up with 5 campaigns. All I did was just say build awareness, and I just said in my personal account. So it said, well, let me figure out who you are, and let me think about what I would do to help you build awareness. And they came up with 5 campaigns. And it says, well, there's the going independent campaign, a body of work beats a resume, ask me anything, the 30-minute door, make every session count, and proof that restocks the pipeline. So these are the campaign ideas. And then based on these campaign ideas that it generated, it will actually create the content down here in the calendar, which it's not ready yet, but it'll create content ideas. And then you can go through those ideas and you can say, oh, I like that. Turn that one into a post, delete that one, turn that one into a post, delete that one. And it'll generate a bunch of really good things. It's always easier to edit than it is to create, right? So it'll kind of create these ideas for you and set them up. And then you can do them in Radiate or you can do them in Claude. Claude knows your content plan as much as it knows your posts and schedules. So instead of looking at actual posts, it can actually go into that planning calendar and it'll look and say, well, you have a bunch of things planned. Do you want me to help you write any of them? Do you want me to help you, do the newsletter? You want me to help you do the email? You want me to, it'll try and help you do the stuff. So here's the calendar of the plan that it made for me, by the way. So if you look at, this was the thing we came up with. All I said was build awareness. And if I like these ideas, I can click on one of them and I can say, oh, this is really cool. So, send to post and it'll generate a post for me. Okay. So that's how you do a month of planning. Now, the last one here though is really cool. It's called Fission. And what you do is you can take a URL from YouTube, hopefully something you've done. Like, let's say that you captured a presentation that you did and you that was really cool. I want to turn that into some content. Or maybe you interviewed somebody or you were interviewed by somebody on a podcast. You go and find the URL. And I think I have my Inspiring Founders thing here, okay? And I have these really great interviews that I've had with lots of founders. And Cora, Beth, I'd love to interview Cora, right? As a founder of Cora, I'd love to get one of these, for you. And all you do is you go into one of these videos. Like let's open this one up here. Let me stop it. Okay, so I had this interview with Tom, and I think the watch ends at the ampersand right there, right? So I'm going to copy the link, right? And I'm going to go in here and put the link in YouTube, and I'll say, let's put this in August also, all right? And I'll do links back to the video, and I'll say, I'm the host, I'm interviewing other people, and I own the content, or I'm authorized, and I'm going to tell Radiate to just fission this video. And what it'll do is it'll go to the video and it will try and figure out what the themes were talked about throughout the whole video. And then based on the themes, it will try to figure out what kinds of posts it could create based on those themes that align with your brand. And so it's a complex sort of like weaving of things, but in the end, what you get is 20 some odd posts you could choose from that you could scatter throughout the month. And what they do is they just set you up as a thought leader. So here's what it came up with. So I'm gonna deselect them all, and I'm only gonna choose one so that you can see. I love this one. Humility is the number one entrepreneur trait, right? Like I love that one. And then, oh, maybe this one too. Entrepreneurial roles. Not everyone has to be the founder. Like that's really important. So I like those, but it found a ton of things. And so I'm just going to take those 2 chapters that it found, these 2 ideas, and then it's going to generate some posts ideas around just those concepts. And so this is an amazing way to generate content. If you are like, I don't want to sit and create a post every day, just say, I'm going to sit down with my phone, and I'm just going to do a workshop, or I'm going to do something and capture the whole thing, put it on YouTube, put it in Fission, and it'll generate 20 posts out of it. This would be considered more of the awareness stage of the customer journey, but it could also be part of the adoption phase. So if you're like, we have customers, but they don't use it very much anymore, then this could be something like, this is how you use it better and better and better. So here's what it came back with. It said for the month of August, we came back with these cool, 10. There's 10 things. All I got to do is hit add to calendar, and then it'll put them inside of my calendar. Now I've got posts. It was blank 5 minutes ago. Now it's got a ton of stuff. So here's the cool part. So this is my personal, right? So let me go back to Radiate real quick, and let me just say, switch to my personal and what's on my August plan. Okay. And this is really cool because it's going to totally switch. So it'll forget everything it knew about Radiate, and it'll load my own personal brand back up. And then it'll go into that August plan, and it will differentiate between the posts that were created for awareness and these Fission ones. And then I can actually say, my favorite thing to do is to say, create a LinkedIn post for all of them, and then fan it out. I love the fan out idea. I say fan it out to all my other channels. And what it'll do is it'll take the big post, the LinkedIn post, and it'll create the smaller posts that are necessary for X, or Facebook. And then you might even say, and for any of the Instagram posts, generate an image to go with it. And it'll do the whole thing. That's everything, guys. I think that's all the stuff I wanted to show today about how you can use this to do content for marketing. But I also wanted to show you how you could switch between the types of content based on the, what part of the customer journey you're trying to create content for.